Zinnober Wilkins. I am the Democracy Projects Coordinator for the Every Library Institute. The Every Library Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we do public policy research around libraries and promote the strengthening of civic life in local communities. All of our services are pro bono, and we work in partnership with libraries across the country. So we are very excited to have you all here today and to have Juliette Boberg with the League of Women Voters to talk more about how you, as public librarians, can partner with your local league in promoting civic literacy and election-related activities. And we really do want this to be a discussion, so please feel free to add some questions into the chat as well as comments. And you can also use the Q&A feature. And then before I hand it over to Juliette to talk about her work with the League of Women Voters, I'll just talk a little bit more about our democracy work here at the Every Library Institute and our Vote Libraries initiative. So our Vote Libraries initiative is our platform to help public libraries in registering, informing, and empowering your citizens to help your library conduct election administration work while also remaining nonpartisan. We relaunched our Vote Libraries program early last year because we've seen so many libraries be politicized by book bans and censorships, and so many librarians unsure of if or how they can even be involved in election-related activities. So this was really in response to all of this. Another initiative that we have really been focusing on is encouraging patrons to be more involved. And so we have also launched our yearly campaign for libraries, which is our Libraries 2025 initiative for this year. But we really want to emphasize the work that you as public librarians have been doing all of this time in building the civic literacy within your library. And so ways that you can do that is first by identifying political mis and disinformation. As trusted information centers in your community, public libraries already do this type of work in providing accessible and trusted sources of material to your public. And so we really want to emphasize that you can train patrons in identifying false information and in preventing mis and disinformation politically, and in offering vetted resources and tools. And then in encouraging civics within your patrons and your community through book displays, conversations with patrons, programming and activities around civic learning, and by participating in activities like Civic Learning Week. And then we also really want to emphasize how you can participate more in the democratic process. And so at Vote Libraries, we have created several different tools that public librarians can use in helping to start these relationships and in partnering for promoting democracy within your community. And so one of the things we've done is partnered with the American Association for People with Disabilities Rev Up campaign, and that helps to promote Disability Voting Rights Week. And that can be anything from creating a more accessible polling location within your library to providing social media tags and resources that are more accessible for your patrons with disabilities, hosting on-site voter registration events that are more accessible, and just building more awareness about disability voting rights within your community. Another way that you can get involved is through National Voter Registration Day. Many public libraries are already mandated voter registrars. So, one aspect of voter registration can be just providing the voter registration form, but how can you get more actively involved in that voter registration process? And so, one way that you can do that is by participating in a National Voter Registration Day and becoming a library partner with them. And then also empowering and supporting any 501(c)(3) organizations that are either within or outside of your library. So if your library has a friends group, how can they help you participate in this election administration work while also remaining nonpartisan and helping you in a way that gets more of your patrons to be involved in the voter engagement process and help you make a voter engagement plan so that you can be successful in these election administration activities. And they can also help different patrons talk about what's at stake by providing candidate and issue guides. And then the most important part of all of this is building lasting community relationships. So first, we really want to emphasize that, your role as a librarian is so, so important because you have that inherent trust with your community. And when you listen to your community's needs, you're able to find partners to meet those needs a little bit better. So that could be listening to a disabled community member who wants more accessible elections. And you can find partners like the Rev Up team to then meet those needs of the accessible community partner. It can be partnering with your local League of Women Voters, which I'll turn it over to Juliet in just a couple more minutes. Um, and we really want to emphasize that you have to show up for your community, and that really starts within your library space. And we recognize that a lot of this is work that you're already doing. So thinking about the relationships that already exist within your library for programming and curriculum development or circulation development and collection development standards and building those relationships with your patrons to see which organizations in your local community that they are already involved in. So perhaps there's a patron who is part of their local League of Women Voters. Perhaps somebody is a volunteer at a polling place on election day usually, or they're an election judge, or they're part of Vote Early Day. And so, recognizing that there are likely relationships that are already existing in your library and then utilizing them effectively to make sure that you can show up for your community in this way to promote and participate in more election administration activities. And then lastly, thinking beyond election day. So an example of that could be participating in Disability Voting Rights Week, but then also thinking about how you can make your space more accessible for patrons throughout the year. It can be learning about what issues your community cares about, and then partnering with the League of Women Voters throughout the year so that your community is informed and prepared before they head to the polls on election day, and making sure that your patrons feel comfortable in having conversations that are more bridge building so that they can feel more connected as a community, understand different perspectives within their community, and ultimately prevent polarization so that, you're promoting democracy and civics overall rather than one political ideology over another. And that really helps in staying nonpartisan as a public library. So again, we are so thrilled to have Juliet from the League of Women Voters here, and I will turn it back to you to let us know a little bit more about the League of Women Voters and how public libraries can build that sort of relationship in their community with their local leagues.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. I'm a big fan of Every Library and all that you do. Every Library was a fantastic partner last year, getting our much needed resources out to all of you and your patrons ahead of the 2024 election. election. So really excited to work together again this year. Before I dig in on the League and what we do, first of all, I'm Juliette Boberg. I'm the Director of Corporate and Organizational Partnerships at the League of Women Voters National Office based in DC. But we have state leagues chapters in all 50 states and DC and over 700 local volunteer-driven league chapters across the country. So lots happening at the grassroots level. I am curious for the folks on the call, is anyone currently partnered with their local league on any activity, or have you in the past? Or if not, are you a member of the league, or have you been a member of the league in the past? Just either come off mute or throw something in the chat. If so, I'd love to hear.
I'm Maria from Saginaw, Michigan, and we partner with the league to have voters, to do some voter registration at our libraries and candidates forums for local candidates. And I got started 2 years ago when our local chapter invited me to come talk about book banning. And I loved League of Women Voters. And within a year, they got me signed up for being the vice chair. And now I'm on the slate for our state board as secretary. And it was just the League of Women Voters and the library, our values and everything seemed, very much aligned. I really like that it was nonpartisan. And because that's how I feel my role as a library director. I don't want to tell you who to vote for, but here's some good information. And I was in charge of our Vote 411, and it's an amazing resource. So I'm just happy to be here and to meet you and to get all this great information.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for all you've done with the league, Maria. So are you working with Paula Bowman of the state
Yes.
league on that's fantastic. I love Paula. She does great work. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Okay, awesome. Well, we will build some new partnerships hopefully after this presentation. So let me share my screen.
Excuse me, I was having trouble
Oh,
finding the raising hand. Um,
go ahead.
I'm Jennifer Dye. I'm at the Detroit Public Library, and I have been working on Zoom programs more or less monthly with the Detroit League since September of 2020.
Fantastic. You said the Detroit Public Library is who you're with?
Yes. Mhm.
Awesome. I've actually seen a lot about your programming in partnership with the league. I love what you're doing. Thank you.
Well, we're working hard at it. We like doing it, and it seems popular.
Fantastic. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Here we go. So, a little bit about the League of Women Voters for the folks on the call who may not be familiar. We are a nonpartisan grassroots organization whose mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. As was mentioned already, we are completely nonpartisan. We never support any candidates or parties. We just want to help folks feel empowered to engage in our democracy and make sure that folks have a free and fair democracy to participate in. We're 105 years old. We were born out of the women's suffrage movement in 1920, and since then have grown into a pretty massive national grassroots-led organization. As I mentioned before, I work for the national office in DC, but there are state league chapters in every state and DC, and then over 700 local league chapters across the country. They're in every congressional district. They are working based on the needs of their local community. And we have over 1 million members and supporters nationwide. So really bottom-up, grassroots-driven, nonpartisan organization. The pillars of what we work on: voter education. We want to make sure that voters know how the election system works, how to participate in it, what the different levels of government are, and how to engage as a constituent to push on issues that you care about at each of those levels, and how to understand our quite complicated democratic system. Voter registration is the bread and butter of what we do. We are showing up in all different kinds of spaces, particularly particularly at naturalization ceremonies, at reentry programs for formerly incarcerated individuals, at community colleges, at universities, at high schools, making sure that folks are registered to vote and able to participate in upcoming elections. We also do voter mobilization and get out the vote. We have a digital mobilizing tool called League in Action, and through that we do text banking events. We're showing up at fairs and spaces in coalition with partners to make sure that people are ready to vote, getting their friends to vote, making a plan to vote, and getting to the polls. We do a lot on voting rights and voter protection. We do litigation at the federal, state, and local level, pushing back on anti-democratic bills and laws. And then we do issue advocacy in coalition with partners who lead on issues like reproductive justice, environmental justice, gun control. There's a whole slate of issues that we work in coalition with partners who lead on those issues to support and advocate, mostly at the state and local level. Just to give you a little taste of our impact, in 2024, we reached over 30 million voters, both digitally and in person, and protected about 9.38 million voters through our legal action. And that was with the help of folks like the people on this call. Our current focus, it's a crazy time right now. We are firing off on all cylinders and figuring out how to push back on the many anti-democratic actions happening at the federal level. Our focus is local elections. People, call this an off year, quote unquote, but there are tons of state and local elections happening throughout this year. A few off the top of my head, there's the Wisconsin statewide Supreme Court race on April 1st. I think there's a couple statewide races, special elections in Florida on April 1st as well. I know there's a ton of local elections happening in Texas in May. I live in Seattle. I'm a remote employee based in Seattle, and I have a mayoral election in the fall. And then New Jersey and Virginia, of course, have their statewide elections on November 4th this year. There's tons of elections happening across the country, and our league chapters are working every day to make sure folks are updating their voter registration address, making sure they have a plan to vote, making sure they know about these elections. They're signing up to be poll workers, election observers, supporting their election administrators to make sure that these elections run smoothly. There's tons of work that happens at the local level to make sure that folks can engage in these elections throughout this year. We're also doing civics education. We are hosting, in large part in partnership with local libraries, hosting, civics 101 sessions, mis and disinformation training, how to identify mis and disinformation on social media and how to push back on false narratives in an effective way. Organizer trainings, how to effectively work in coalition with community partners to push on issues that you care about at the federal, state, and local level as a successful community organizer. We're also pushing back on anti-democratic efforts. We are advocating against the SAVE Act, which is an act that is going to be voted on in the House likely next week, that would require proof of citizenship, like a birth certificate or a passport, in order to register to vote. That would totally upend the League's voter registration efforts in the field, along with any other nonpartisan nonprofits who do voter registration in the field. So we are doing a lot of work to push back on that effort. Town halls, there's been a mass cancellation of town halls across the country as constituents have been, upset with various things happening. We are making sure that our league members and their community are mobilized to pressure their members of Congress to host town halls in their community. That is a core part of the democratic process and a way for constituents to engage their members. So we're making sure that people are pressuring their representatives to host town halls and then have the resources that they need to show up in town halls and ask the questions that they want to ask about the issues that they care about. We're also mobilizing folks. We held protests, a series of actions on, I believe it was March 4th, called Light for Democracy. I don't know if any of you saw information on that. And then we are joining a broad coalition of partners on April 5th for an action, a protest called Hands Off, which I can share more information on if anybody is interested. So some examples of the ways that leagues and libraries work together and have worked together for years. We've already heard a couple shared from the folks on this call. We do voter registration drives together, so leagues can come in and do tabling voter registration at libraries, or train librarians or staff of libraries to host their own voter registration drives. We do civics education workshops. That looks like mis and disinformation trainings, Civics 101. I know of a league that's done training a series with their local library to help folks understand the process to run for local office and what that looks like. And then organizing trainings, which I already spoke about. They'll host candidate and educational forums, so bringing in local election candidates to talk to constituents and debate. They'll bring in election officials to do panels on how elections are run, or they'll do issue-focused panels on various issues happening that their community cares about. They'll also do educational resources in partnership with their league. So I'll get more into vote411.org later in this presentation, but we produce printed and digital voter guides, and oftentimes that is in partnership with libraries to make sure that people know about ballot measures on their ballot in upcoming elections, about candidates, and are prepared to vote. A couple examples here you can see of partnerships. The Belmont League in Belmont, Massachusetts is partnering with the Belmont Public Library to host an event on combating mis and disinformation in partnership with the Belmont Media Center. And I believe that's being built into a series. This is the first event of many. The Red River Valley North Dakota League has been in partnership with the West Fargo Public Library for years now on a longstanding partnership on run for office programming. So they'll bring in elected officials or current elected officials to talk about their process for running for office. They'll bring in organizations that support people in the process for running for office, share toolkits, do Q&As, and help people just kind of demystify that process of what it looks like to be to run for local office. So if any folks on this call are not currently in contact with your local league and you're interested in setting up programming like this, how you get in contact is very easy. If you go to lwv.org, there is a local league locator tool. You can see a screenshot of it here. You can just type in your zip code, press find a league, and it'll come up with your local league and contact information to reach out. So pivoting a little bit into vote411.org, one of the fabulous things about our partnership with Every Library is we have created a co-branded election center that you all can utilize to help your patrons get ready to vote, make sure they're registered at their current address, make a plan to vote, learn about what's on, what local elections are upcoming and what's going to be on their ballot. Vote411.org is a digital tool that the League launched in 2006. It is your one-stop shop for all of the election information and tools that a voter needs to cast their ballot, voter registration, an absentee ballot request form, polling place lookup, state-specific voting laws and deadlines. We have a zip code-specific ballot guide. If you put in your information, it'll come up with, down to the local level, all of the candidates that are going to be on your ballot and all of the ballot issues that will be on your ballot in an upcoming election down to the local level. Those ballot guides are made possible by our league volunteers across the country who are drafting questions for their local candidates in upcoming elections based on what they know their constituents, their community members care about, sending those questions to local candidates, soliciting answers, and then populating that into the guide. And it sounds like Maria may even be on the Vote411 crew that's doing that currently in Michigan. So thank you for your work on that. Vote411 is available in both English and Spanish, so just want to call that out as well. So here you can see this is the URL, and I can share this later in the chat when I'm not speaking, and what the Every Library Election Center looks like. You can see at the top here, there's the three main tools on the site: register to vote, check your voter registration, and find what's on your ballot. And when you click find what's on your ballot and fill in your information, you get your localized ballot guide. So voter registrations, you all are probably aware, vary state by state, and the deadlines vary obviously based on the local election calendar this year. So I really encourage everybody to head to the site, fill in your information, and look at what local elections are coming up in your area and the voter registration deadlines associated with them. There's also different rules around third-party voter registration in different states. So I really encourage you to reach out to your local league if you're interested in doing voter registration, because they will know all of those laws and regulations and can help you navigate them. They are the experts on this, so I really encourage you to utilize them as a resource. Here's a little bit more on the localized ballot guides. You can see there's information on local ballot measures. There's Q&A with candidates. You can see all the candidates and then upcoming election information. You can also utilize Vote 411 to help folks make a plan to vote. And there's a lot of research around if a voter makes a plan to vote, they're more likely to actually vote. You can see there's a state map on the homepage where you can click on your state and it comes up with all of the information, including even how to volunteer at the polls or how to contact your local elections office. So I really encourage you to use this tool. This is both desktop and mobile friendly. We've had libraries create things like printed materials like bookmarks or flyers that have QR codes that lead you to the page. Because it is mobile friendly, you can do this and help folks just on their phone or on an iPad if your library has an iPad. Make sure that they're registered to vote and are prepared for an upcoming election. Want to flag here just a few dates on the calendar that leagues tend to activate around. We've got National Volunteer Week at the end of April, National Poll Worker Recruitment Day in August, along with Women's Equality Day. On August 26th, Women's Equality Day, the league runs a campaign called Women's Inequality Day that focuses on the history of women's rights over the last decade or so or century. And talks about sort of what's at stake today for women in our democracy. National Voter Registration Day, we've already discussed, is a big activation day for leagues. National Voter Education Week and Vote Early Day in October. And then, of course, the general elections happen November 4th this year. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, thank you for sharing the Vote 411 link.
Great.
So that's, oh, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Juliet.